National Guard troops are departing the nation's capital. Those deployed to protect the district began the process of leaving Washington on Sunday. Infrastructure, still a hotly debated topic on Capitol Hill. Biden slashed the infrastructure proposal down to $1.7 trillion from the original $2.25 trillion. But Republicans say many of the cuts they requested weren't made. And the global minimum tax also expected to go up. The White House says it is a top priority of Biden's. But what effect does a higher global minimum tax have on the markets? Tune in to Deep Dive as we explore these topics and more. Hello and welcome. This is Deep Dive and I'm Tiffany Meier. Let's kick off with the National Guard stationed around the nation's capital because they are going home. The over 2,000 National Guard troops are departing the nation's capital. They began leaving Washington on Sunday. A D.C. Guard spokesman told WUSA 9 the Capitol Police have not requested the Guard to stay past May 23rd. Retired Lieutenant General Russel Honoré says the mission of securing the Capitol has been accomplished 137 days after the events of January 6th. Honoré stressed on CBS's Face the Nation on Sunday the urgency of the Senate passing the $1.9 billion security bill currently making its way through Congress. The House passed it last week. He says the money is necessary to secure the Capitol going forward, to improve the Capitol Police force, and to cover the costs of the National Guard. The troops came with a hefty price tag. Back in February, Michigan Congresswoman Lisa McClain and other House Republicans asked House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to explain the reasoning behind keeping the troops in D.C. McClain told Fox News at the time that the only briefings she and her colleagues have had on this issue were through the media, saying the troops may be here to stay until the fall. McClain said she asked Pelosi for a briefing as to why they need the troops here for so long, but she says they received zero information. Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby said at the time the estimated cost for National Guard protection at the Capitol complex through March 12th would cost nearly $500 million in taxpayer dollars. Now, staying at the Capitol, infrastructure is still a hotly debated topic on Capitol Hill. Biden slashed his proposal down to $1.7 trillion. It was originally $2.25 trillion. According to Politico, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says this shows the administration is willing to work across the aisle. She said at a press briefing, this is the art of seeking common ground. But Republicans say many of the cuts they asked for weren't made. The Republicans' counterproposal cost $568 billion. And it's not just the hefty price tag that Republicans are taking issue with. They also have concerns with where the money is going. Republicans have issue with what counts as infrastructure. That's because many of the items under the proposal fall under what Democrats call human infrastructure, such as electric cars, child care, free college tuition, and paid time off. Republicans have been pushing for what they call traditional infrastructure, such as roads, bridges, broadband, etc. And as to who's paying for the infrastructure, Biden has indicated tax hikes on the wealthy, raising the corporate tax rate to 28%. Republicans and some Democrats are wary about it, saying it could hurt the economy more rather than help. According to CNN, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy said that raising taxes would be the biggest mistake you could make. Negotiations are still ongoing. And even without Republican support, Democrats can turn to budget reconciliation again. That's how the $1.9 trillion COVID relief package was passed. But moderate Democrat Senator Joe Manchin has said he is against using the method after the partisan passage of the COVID-19 package. He is also opposed to raising the corporate tax rate so high. He's suggesting instead a 25% rate. And Senator Bernie Sanders said over the weekend on CBS's Face the Nation, we would like bipartisanship, but I don't think we have a seriousness on the part of the Republican leadership to address the major crisis facing this country. The Biden administration hopes Congress makes major progress on the infrastructure package by Memorial Day and passes the bill by July 4th. And this comes as a bipartisan group of senators introduced a $303.5 billion surface transportation bill. The bill would reauthorize Department of Transportation funding for highways, roads, and bridges. The current funding is due to expire in September. The proposed spending is 34% higher than that authorized by Congress in 2015. The committee's chairman, Senator Tom Carper, says in a statement, "We must reauthorize the surface transportation bill before its current authorization expires in September. It is a vital foundation for President Biden's American Jobs Plan." And the committee's ranking member, Senator Shalimar Capito, says safe and reliable infrastructure is something every American can get behind. Adding, "From the beginning of this process, I have expressed my desire to work together across the aisle to develop a bipartisan solution to address our nation's infrastructure challenges." The measure comes amid ongoing disagreements across the aisle over Biden's infrastructure package. The bipartisan surface transportation proposal is sure to play a role in the conflict over the infrastructure plan because it shows that Republicans would come on board to pass a traditional infrastructure package. Now, under Biden's infrastructure proposal, the corporate tax rate is expected to go up to 28%. And for those planning to move money offshore, the global minimum tax rate is also expected to go up. The Treasury Department on Thursday offered to accept a global minimum corporate tax of at least 15%. That is down from the previous 21% put forward. The Treasury Department said Thursday a global corporate minimum tax rate would ensure the global economy thrives based on a more level playing field in the taxation of multinational corporations and would spur innovation, growth, and prosperity while improving fairness for middle class and working people. The statement goes on to argue, with the global corporate minimum tax functionally set at zero today, there has been a race to the bottom on corporate taxes, undermining the United States and other countries' ability to raise the revenue needed to make critical investments. CNBC reported the White House has stressed raising the global minimum tax rate is a key goal of the Biden administration. Deputy National Security Advisor and Deputy National Economic Council Director Dalip Singh tells CNBC it is not just a tax issue, it is about how to fund initiatives that we think are central to our domestic renewal. He adds the aim is to level the playing field. The Trump administration and congressional Republicans in 2017 cut the corporate tax rate to 21%. That's from the 35%. At the same time, the Treasury launched a U.S. minimum tax of 10.5%. That is known as the Global and Tangible Low-Taxed Income Tax. That is to get revenue moved by companies to tax haven countries. The Biden administration's proposed 21% rate was widely seen as a starting point for renewed OECD talks on a global minimum tax. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, is made up of 37 member countries that discuss and develop economic and social policy. Reuters reports both France and Germany backed the raised global minimum tax, calling it a good compromise and big progress. But they both insist such talks should be wrapped up as planned by a July meeting of G20 finance ministers. This comes amid suggestions from the OECD that it could take until October to finalize a deal. Ireland, meanwhile, has voiced concerns about a global minimum tax. The country has chosen a low-tax model to attract foreign investment. The country has one of the lowest corporate tax rates in the OECD at 12.5%. According to the Tax Foundation, increasing the corporate tax rate to 28% would raise the U.S. federal state combined tax rate to 32.34%. This change will make the U.S. corporate tax rate the highest in the OECD, reducing U.S. competitiveness. The average corporate tax rate among the OECD countries, excluding the U.S., is 23.4%. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has argued a global minimum tax is to prevent a race to the bottom. That's when countries aim to outdo each other with a lower rate to attract businesses. Tax Foundation said in a report, contrary to the proposal's claims about a race to the bottom on corporate tax rates, reductions in corporate rates have plateaued for more than a decade. The Biden administration is seeking international cooperation on the global corporate minimum tax rate in an effort to at least partially offset any disadvantages that might arise from the administration's proposal to raise the U.S. corporate tax rate to 28%. The move is seen as a key to funding the Biden administration's massive infrastructure proposal. But how is raising the global minimum tax going to affect markets? A global minimum tax rate could shake up the playing field. That's because countries usually considered safe havens, such as the Cayman Islands and the British Virgin Islands, will be hit. Those territories have 0% corporation tax rates. A report shows 57% of companies had subsidiaries located in Bermuda or the Cayman Islands for the year of 2016. That's the most recent report. The biggest players are pharmaceuticals like Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. According to an analysis by Goldman Sachs, several major American companies make more than 50% of their income internationally. The goal of the global minimum tax rate is to make these locations useless. A law professor and director of the International Tax Program at the University of Michigan tells Fast Company that is because if all countries had the same tax rate, there would be no benefit for companies to create offshore subsidiaries. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says the global minimum tax rate would ensure that all citizens fairly share the burden of financing government. Some economists counter by saying a global minimum tax rate for corporations will frustrate the free market, adding it will also see little support from foreign governments. But what do you think? Let me know below. Thanks for tuning in to Deep Dive. I'm Tiffany Meier, and see you soon.